Hey, everybody. We'll get going in a second, but just so people know what is going on today, we're doing Secret Spaces. We had a couple weeks off because we were on the ground in ETH Denver, having a great time, getting all kinds of great interest in the network. But now we're back with Secret Spaces, back in the metaverse instead of in the physical realm. We're here to share with you a quick recap of everything that went down on the ground. Sit tight, we'll kick off in a moment. Bringing up Patrick and Jay from Secret Foundation, who were on the ground in ETH Denver at our events, chatting with all the great agents on the ground, chatting with people from the other communities, the privacy community, the Cosmos community. We had a great time and, of course, met lots of developers, many of whom were there for the main hackathon itself. Anywho, we're just getting that tweet out and we'll be sending that around our secret channels. But just to do those introductions again, this is Tor joining from the Secret Network account. Also Patrick and also Jay, who are down with us on the ground. We had more than, of course, just the few of us here on the ground in ETH Denver. We had representation from Secret Labs, the core developers. We had representation from the foundation, from Secret Agency, from a lot of dApps and validators around the secret ecosystem. A very good presence down in Denver. And a really great experience overall. A lot of great feedback on how things are going in the secret ecosystem. And we also were able to do some events that we've never done before, including this Universal Privacy Alliance Summit. So let's start out with our main discussion of the ETH Denver recap. So we sent a lot of people in the Secret Network ecosystem to go down, thinking ETH Denver is always one of the best and most well-attended events of the year, especially in the United States. And that definitely came true. The entire city was pretty much overrun. We had probably upwards of 10,000 devs on the ground working on ETH Hackathon projects or engaging in all of these side events. Every single side event was packed, at least the ones that I went to. And there were multiple competing side events. So certainly the bear market is not existential. A lot of pent up developer interest in the space right now. But let's go through event by event, and we'll start with our recap of the UPA Summit. So recently, Secret has been one of the founding members of the Universal Privacy Alliance. And the intent of the Universal Privacy Alliance is to drive interest and awareness in privacy technologies within the Web3 space and educate people as to the importance of these technologies. Adoption, of course, is absolutely critical, but adoption only comes from understanding. We're not the only project in the space, obviously, that feels this way. So involved in UPA and involved in this event, we also had the Manta team, the Mobile Coin team, the Oasis team, the NIM team, the Aztec team, Electric Coin Company, which is the Zcash developers, as well as Orchid. And a number of other projects and companies have also expressed some interest in joining the UPA effort because they all sort of recognize the essential nature of privacy education for the success of their own products. We definitely feel that this is an instance where all of our projects are stronger together as opposed to having people decide that we're actually competing in some way. We certainly don't see it that way. And the intent of this event was to ensure that nobody else saw it that way either, that these are global movements where broad engagement is necessary for success. So for a little bit more context on this event, I'll turn it over to Jay, who was helping us organize things on the ground. How did you see the event go down? What do you think was like the main messaging that was being conveyed, and how was the turnout in particular?
So I was, leading up to UPA, I'm thinking, okay, if we can get about 100, 150 people, I think that's going to be a great turnout. Truthfully, I think there were easily 250 to 300 people, definitely exceeded the maximum limit of the room. People were standing in the background, people were standing outside who couldn't even get in. That, first of all, was really led the narrative that privacy is extremely important, especially now, and privacy as our right. The narrative that I found was very interesting, and the collective solidarity was really around privacy as a service. What do we do about it? How do we execute it? What does it mean to us in any given time and space within our world? And it was interesting. There were some really interesting panels. Teams from Mantra, MobileCoin, NIM, Aztec, Oasis, ECC, Orchid. They all had input and feedback on what that meant for them. Guy Ziskin was also a key contributor to these conversations as well. And I believe that, you know, people really walked in there with a positive, obviously we're all very nervous about the world we're living in at the moment just because of the status of the market, but really was a very forward facing series of conversations. And my regret personally is that it wasn't longer and that we didn't have more people involved in richer discussions of what we can do as not only our individual chains, but also as an entity, as an industry. How do we how can we be compliant but still maintain our own levels of privacy as we need them as individuals and as individual blockchains? Speaking with people inside and outside the event, I think people are really looking forward to another UPA summit. I think it was so focused as the narrative was very specific, and there's a lot more to talk about. There's a lot more ideas to share among people, and I think it was a phenomenal kickoff to what I believe is going to be a series of events that are going to be coming up around the world. That was my global take of it.
Oh, for sure. I think, again, it helped also that we did this right at the top of the week. This was the first event we hosted. We did it on a Monday. People came in with a lot of energy. And I think the most exciting thing for people was being able to see very experienced researchers and academics and builders speaking with nuance on these topics, because certainly later in the week, we had the experience of, the typical privacy panels. You appear, people ask the same questions about privacy as always. What's the difference between privacy and anonymity and pseudonymity? And we've gone through those answers so many times, but this time we had panels on things like uh, the the risks of implementing secure hardware, ORAM, the limitations of ZK, really trying to bridge from saying privacy is important to understanding how to implement these solutions in production, making it practical. And it made it clear like there's demand specifically for that, specifically for understanding that transition towards adoption just from academics. That's been really exciting to
You
see
know,
the demand for that conversation.
you said something that really resonates for the week. The fact that it was the first event of several throughout the week, and obviously including hackathons through the weekend, it really was a very relevant topic to kick off the week. And in many respects, it set the tone for a lot of discussions that I had organically with people. And I know some of the agents on the ground as well. They were just organic discussions about implementation, execution, and perception of what privacy is all about. So I thought it was a great tone setter for many great events throughout the week.
For sure. Well, let's talk about at least. So, first of all, just to tie off UPA, this isn't the last UPA event. Obviously, this is something that we're going to recurringly come back to. We're hoping to do events even within this coming quarter for UPA. And the work of the UPA will be ongoing. It's going to be advocacy and education, not just in events, but also with regulators and also with students. It's really just getting the word out around the importance of privacy, not just as a narrative, but as a technology within the crypto space. But this takes us, I think, really nicely to Interop Summit. So Interop Summit was a Monday, Tuesday event. It was hosted by the Axelar team and focused on interoperability across all of these different Web3 ecosystems. Like us, Axelar is very active in the Cosmos, so there was a lot of people from the Cosmos ecosystem featured on stage. That includes Osmosis and Evmos and, of course, Secret, and also validators like Figment. But there was also people from well outside the ecosystem. So think like Solana and Celo and Zcash all getting featured at the event. And then, of course, you had enterprises like Google Cloud, Microsoft. There was a ton of engagement up and down what I would guess we would call the interoperability stack. Really great conversations, really great engagement, and again, very hard to move in the room. Very packed event, and glad to see that they had that success.
As much as I thought the turnout was really solid with UPA, I was literally blown away. Like as soon as we walked into the Interop event, the first thing I thought it was like it's like going to a fraternity party without the booze. I mean, it was standing room only. You were literally shoulder to shoulder with people, and that was outside of the conference, outside of the conversation hall, where the panels were and the keynotes were. This is just in the general room. Um, at times it was actually difficult to get around to talk to different people. It was that crowded. I think people were really tuned into it, and I was just pleasantly shocked. Just to add to that.
Yeah, pleasant shock was sort of the theme of the week, but again, it was a great opportunity also to showcase Secret's role within this ecosystem and talk a little bit about the role of privacy in interoperability. So there was a great privacy panel. Guy Ziskin was on that panel. It also featured Ironfish and Alio. And oh gosh, I'm trying to remember who the other project on stage was. We did take a lot of footage. Do you remember, Jay, who participated?
Uh, I wanted to say Agoric, but it wasn't.
No, they had a
I'd have to,
separate
I have to go
panel.
back to the video. I got to go back to the videotape.
I
Um,
know it ended up being a real long week, but
yeah.
it was a good panel. I think the questions were a little bit more traditional privacy question. We didn't
Yeah.
quite get as deep, so it gave me also an appreciation even further for the UPA event, just not being able to get deeper into the weeds.
But to have Guy as part of the conversation at Interop was still pretty instrumental, pretty clutch. That just shows the relevancy of what Secret's doing in this space. I thought it was just really important to add. We had agents on the ground there, just kind of not kind of, but walking around, engaging conversation. All I know is I kept getting, people kept coming back to me. Hey, Jay, do we have more hats? Do we have more things so that we can give out? People are coming up to us asking for things. Swag aside, though, the conversations that every one of us had, myself included, with people knew more about us than I had expected or have seen in the past. Um, you know, Typically a lot of conferences we've been to, hey, I've heard about Secret. Tell us a little bit about it. What are you guys all about? These were more specific. At least I fielded more specific conversations and I'm sorry, specific questions about how does Secret work handle this, or how do you guys address this? And I thought that was a lot more track. There was a lot more traction to those conversations, and I believe that there were a lot more leads that were generated as far as further conversations and additional conversations with people who want to get involved or who want more information. Again, it's around privacy and very much around what the Secret Network has to offer in this world. Not only today, but what does it look like tomorrow? And I found that to be much more of the theme this time around, especially with Interop.
No doubt. Yeah, it's always great to connect with people on the ground who we haven't connected with at previous conferences and figuring out how did you hear about Secret for the first time. And shockingly, they often say, "Oh yeah, 2 years ago." That's always a fun experience. So let's keep moving forward from that event because that was just the start of the week. Then, of course, we started moving into more of the main event. Before we get to the main ETH Denver hackathon and conference, that was over the weekend. That was like mostly Friday to Sunday. We also early in the week had the Cosmos Peak nighttime event. We also had the Interop after party where Secret was a co-sponsor. I think both of those events pulled a pretty great crowd.
True. You know, Having when you typically host an after hours party, it's about everyone having a good time and having some hors d'oeuvres and having a few cocktails. I actually found myself having more conversation at the first after hours party, the Cosmos Peak event. People were a little more relaxed or a little more, it wasn't like the shoulder to shoulder thing at Interop or UPA. And I found myself having more conversations about what we do and what we offer. I found it to be very, very instructive. It was also a pretty cool venue. One thing that the organizers did was they had this 360 projection on the ceiling of very cool images, logos. The music worked with it. It was almost it was almost like a sober acid trip in some respects. It was very, very dynamic, and it was a very engaging event. Lindsay, who's our events coordinator, did an unbelievable job in organizing our branding and our footprint there. We were the only um, sponsor that actually had swag on site that people were coming up to us, and that also began conversations that actually weren't just, hey, can I get a hat or a pin or whatever. People were engaging and standing around the table that we had set up for a big chunk of the night, almost all night. There were a few people there. There's always someone at our table. But even walking around, was by the end of the evening, I would say about 25% of the people were wearing privacy hats, which basically get soaked up like water in a desert. But it also is a great, has always been a great conversation piece that begins conversations. Icebreaker is what I was trying to say. But it was a really solid event. Again, Lindsay did a great job with that, and all the other events throughout the week. But this was a great showcase for Secret at the top of the week to really show that we're here all week. We've got a lot of people on the ground. I think there were at least 10 of us that were, yeah, I would say that we had about 10 of us from Secret Labs, Secret Foundation that were there. And while we were all enjoying ourselves, everyone was on the clock, and it was a great footprint and great presence.
Yeah, for sure. The privacy hats, of course, go like hotcakes. If you don't have your own privacy hat, please try to find Secret at an upcoming conference. We would love to hook you up. Now moving on to closer to the main event, right? We're getting to the Thursday events, and that was pretty much the whole day straight through, getting to do the Cosmos Breakfast and Shared Security Summit, and then closing with Cosmos on tap at night. It was a very Cosmos centric day, and there was big Cosmos presence out in Denver. People maybe didn't assume that there would be a big Cosmos presence out there because this is traditionally an Ethereum focused event, but I can tell you for sure, having been there, definitely not the case. So Cosmos Breakfast was packed, tons of line. I think there was probably at least 100 people in line for those bagels, and then the room got packed up. Going into Shared Security Summit, which had some great panels, but definitely a lot of Cosmos curious individuals. Secret was happy to be there and contribute to that effort and shed some more light on the ecosystem. Meanwhile, with the Cosmos on tap event that night at Blue Moon, Jay, maybe you want to say a few words about that, and that, or Patrick as well, because by this point I think you were on the ground with us as well. How do you guys think that tap event went?
Well, I'll jump in first, and then Patrick can absolutely fill in the blanks here. From an event standpoint, which is what I typically am involved with, is it was probably the most successful event that we participated in. I'd like to believe for the week. I was told by more than a few people there, and even afterwards, that they left other events and came to ours because they heard how good this event was and how much fun it was going to be. But more importantly, it wasn't just a party in a bar. We also had a panel tour. You spoke at a panel. I'd love for you to give a little more color about that. Again, talking about privacy and talking about, what does it mean within the Cosmos ecosystem? What does it look like today? How do we want to move forward in the tomorrows? But it was a very well received event. People knew what they were coming to, and they really were surprised that it was more than what they expected. Again, Lindsay, working with some of the other chains, really did a great job in securing a phenomenal venue. Branding and information flow was very prolific. So while it was still an after party and people were kicking back, having some drinks, it was also a night where people can represent and talk about what what individual chains do. So you hear me being a cheerleader as far as these events go and how I believe how successful they were. There were also some things that I know we can improve upon, but Secret ended up taking over the actual activation of that evening. A lot of people did show up to work, but ended up enjoying themselves more than working. And Lindsay and the agents on the ground there stepped in and manned the door almost the entire night. There was always someone manning our table with the swag, walking around the room. Secret definitely owned. I would like to believe we owned that event. We were kind of the leader among equals by the end of the evening. Patrick, I'd love to hear your color and take above mine. So that's how I looked at it.
Yeah, I think it was definitely successful. So this was being ETH Denver. It's a mainly Ethereum focused event. So we have a different strategy than other events, and I think it was pretty much in line with what all the other Cosmos networks that showed up did as well. So I think that was the right strategy. We definitely got our name out there, and along with the other Cosmos networks, we showed that Secret's still a leader in the Cosmos space, and we're still around. And I think we probably brought in some Ethereum people as well because we had, I think it was a 250 capacity for that building, but we had 900 people register, and throughout the night it was pretty much almost at capacity, if not at capacity, the whole time. People coming in and out, so definitely saw a whole lot of faces. Hopefully, a lot of people heard about what Secret's all about with our keynote going on at the time. Tor was up there presenting, and Kosh and Evmos and Injective were up there presenting. So I think it went really well.
For sure. I really loved the panel. It got recorded. It was pretty loud in the venue, to be sure, but that is only because everybody showed up. So we got plenty of branding exposure and plenty of great conversations. And there were some dApps in the ecosystem as well, including the Secret Admirers team who were down on the ground in Denver, and we got a chance to catch up with them. And I'm sure they appreciated the ability to be featured there on the ground, to have more of a personal touch with the Secret team as they're starting to expand their presence in the ecosystem. You'll start hearing a lot more about all those dApps. And of course, the agency guys on the ground being able to cover a lot of ground, meet a lot of the people from the other projects, but also from all over the ecosystem. There was every possible range of familiarity with the Cosmos ecosystem represented there. People who had been working in the Cosmos for years, and then people who kind of heard that there was a fun time going on and slipped by. A lot of great follow-ups to come, and also a lot of great representation from our ecosystem. I think makes it probably my favorite side event of the week, but it was close. Had a lot of really great side events in the week. Now we'll just move to wrap up to talk about the main conference. So Patrick and I stuck around through the weekend to be engaging with devs who were on the ground. A lot of fun at the hackathon, not a lot of Wi-Fi at the hackathon. So the devs ended up splintering out. Most of Denver was crammed full of people in coffee shops and breweries just working during the day. The hackathon venue itself, not so much. So we had a great time engaging with the people who were there and working. I think if we had had a booth at ETH Denver, we would have been a lot more constrained. We heard this complaint from a lot of other projects there that they felt hamstrung by needing to man a booth as opposed to go around the venue. So Patrick and I were able to cover a lot of ground, meet a lot of builders. It has been a really great week, but just a really long week. So what was it like? I mean, Patrick, before we get into the main thing that was a takeaway for us at ETH Denver, which I think were these side opportunities specifically around TEEs and beyond ZK and things that we care a lot about at Secret. What was your experience overall like at the conference?
Yeah, I walked around a lot. I had a list of people that I was trying to meet up with, and I got a pretty good amount of them. I met up with a couple of upcoming Secret app developers actually that happened to be at the conference, and had some really good conversations with them. And I know they also got to speak with Guy earlier in the week at one of the side events. They're really excited to get to start building, and I'm just really excited to get to start promoting them. So both of them are kind of around privacy as a service, so it should be very interesting. We should hear more about them soon. Also got to speak to some other privacy networks like Fala and Oasis, and talk a little bit about our upcoming strategy, especially around Beyond ZK. And we started discussing some potential events for the upcoming conference at Consensus. Won't say too much about that because it's still in the early stages, but we definitely made some valuable connections, and we have some really good plans. And did you want to go ahead and move into like that TE event, or did you want to say anything more about the main conference first?
I mean,
It was actually
you're already touching on it, so go straight ahead.
okay. So it was actually before. I think it was the night before the main conference started, but we got invited to this very small event. It was much different than anything else that we went to. There was only a 25-person capacity on the event sign up, so I was like, "This is kind of weird. Is this just like a workshop or something?" But we got an invite, so I went to it, and it was, I don't think it was organized by Andrew Miller, the researcher that we've been working with over the past few months on tea related stuff, but he was one of the presenters um, at the event. There was several different speakers, and he was the first one. So it was very much tea focused, and just the whole energy in the room was very different compared to a lot of the ZK events and all of the hype around ZK that we're
Sure.
seeing everywhere these days. Um,
No, to be
but
sure.
these,
And these things tend to play out in exactly this way all the time in every cycle, right? I remember this from the previous cycle that as soon as all like the hype dies down and things go a little quiet from the VC perspective, that's when really the builders step in because the problems to solve, especially on the infrastructure layer and the privacy layer, they don't go anywhere. So the people who are still motivated to solve those problems are still building. They're just finding these silos where they can discuss these issues and go in depth. And I think it was while this side event was incredibly valuable and it was more of like a working session for all of these contributors, finding ways through UPA and through our independent organization with Secret, finding ways to get these conversations more exposure in the public consciousness will be really valuable. Secret is already considered thought leaders within this tightly held community on these topics of privacy. But because they're such nuanced issues, it's really hard to get broader public attention. You do have to brand them a little bit. So we're trying to use Beyond ZK as an educational initiative to show people that, while ZK is a nice meme, just saying ZK out loud does not solve issues of privacy. It's a very complex solution space. ZK is a very tiny part of that solution. We need to go beyond ZK as projects, not just Secret, but as all projects, in order to find real privacy solutions that can work for real users. That message was really well received, not just by the broader community, but also by these other partner projects. They're glad to finally have that sort of educational initiative branding to latch onto. And I am looking forward to continuing those relationships over the coming months so that we can partner on more educational initiatives for end users, developers, enterprises, regulators. Everybody deserves better access to the best information about privacy technologies. And that's what we're going to try to deliver. So with that said, we're getting to the end of the wrap up of ETH Denver. We did get a few more people in here to catch our updates. We're going to be, as always, uploading these spaces so that you can listen in future times, and then they'll be living here in perpetuity on Twitter. Now's a great time if y'all have questions about how things were on the ground, or if you want to say hello because you were on the ground in Denver, stick your hands up. We'd love to hear from you. Or if you have a suggestion on another conference that you'd love to see Secret at, stick your hand up. Tell us where you'd like us to show up in the world next. We're certainly looking to prioritize a lot of conferences in Europe through the end of the year. I know the Secret Labs team is excited to attend those. We'll be in Austin for Consensus in about a month and a half. Excited to do that. We'll also have a presence at the MIT Bitcoin Expo, Bitcoin Expo. That's coming right before Consensus, again at the end of April. Lots of different places you'll be able to come and engage with the Secret team. But this is your last chance to throw your hands up. Let us know what you're curious about. Let us know if you've got any questions. We'll keep the space on for another few minutes. We're wrapping up a little early today just for the smaller crowd and because we have a lot of follow-ups from Denver to get back to. But stick your hands up if anybody has anything to say or questions to ask. And while we wait for you, Patrick, Jay, anything else, takeaways from the week that you want to share?
One thing that I, from an organizational standpoint, as far as a lot of events that have traditionally now have been happening at the same time, having multiple events in a short period of time, I found in the past we sponsored a particular event and wrapped all of our strategy and outreach around that. But what was very unique about Denver is that we didn't really have an anchor point. We didn't have a booth set up in a particular event, which just by native organization, it was phenomenal because we didn't have to rely on people coming up to us at our booth at one place at any given time. This enabled all of us on the ground to be out at different side events. We divided our efforts. We divided our manpower to go to different places, to have different conversations. And I found the engagement was a lot better and a lot more, but more importantly, a lot more organic. We didn't have a pitch. Someone didn't come up to us and say, "Hey, tell us about Secret. I heard about you guys, but I don't know what you do." This enabled us to have organic conversations on location where we were. And I think this was an aha moment on a lot of levels where this is now going to be integrated into our SOP as we do more live events. As we move into consensus in April, I think this is going to be an approach that we're going to take where we're going to co-brand, co-sponsor, coexist among other chains, like-minded chains, that we can actually be part of the conversation and narrative there. So that was my overall take as far as, the quality of conversation, the quality of connections that we made. I believe it was a big success as it relates to everything else we've done in the last, several months. So I really look forward to the next activation, and I hope to see a lot of you there, and see familiar faces and meet new ones. I really look forward to that.
Awesome. Okay, we do have somebody with their hand up. I'm going to bring them up on stage. Okay, you're up here on stage. I can't tell if you want to be slow-o or if you want to be low-o with a dollar sign. So tell us how we should refer to you.
Hello, it's Lobo.
Awesome. What's up, Lobo?
I was gonna become a validator with Secret. I wanted to run a node on Secret, and I was wondering like how much would it cost, and what would be like the best type of equipment to buy.
Sure. What I would recommend you do is you check out the network documentation. You can go to docs.scrt.network. That has the network documentation. It includes actually a lot of details for node runners. Because of the privacy tech on Secret, there's some requirements for node operators that they should be aware of. But we also have a very supportive validator community. So if you're trying to get set up on the network, validators can help you get onboarded. We're constantly trying to decentralize the network and get more support from our node set. That would be definitely the first place I'd point you, though. Patrick, is there anywhere else that you would say you should check out?
No, it's definitely the best place.
Cool. Well, then there you go.
Okay, guys. Thanks.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for the question.
Okay.
And thanks for contributing to the network.
Oh, of course, yes.
Great. Anybody else in the audience got a question about ETH Denver or Secret? Now's your chance. We're going to go for like maybe a minute more. Patrick, anything else you wanted to wrap up with?
No, I think Jake covered it pretty well.
Yeah, that's a first.
We still love you, Jay.
Oh, I feel the love. Lindsay's on board. Lindsay, is there anything that you wanted to add that I might have missed? Because Lindsay, like I said to all you guys, she was one who really was the middle of the bullseye, making all this stuff happen. She's definitely a rock star. We're lucky to have her.
I mean, I can certainly second that. I sent her a speaker invite, but she didn't accept it, so she can't say for herself. But in her stead, I will definitely second that. Lindsay rocked it on the ground. We're super proud to have her aboard the Secret ecosystem. Not just in terms of how she helped us manage all of the people attending the events on the ground, but also how she managed all the people that she was working with to throw the events. We know that decentralized coordination is hard. It happens that way in the crypto space all the time. And now that we've had all of these co-hosted side events, they're so much more fun. They're so much more impactful. It helps us build some great relationships, but we know that it's a lot harder than just taking a few people from the same organization and just getting it done. So this is my way of saying it's really essential to continue to try to build bigger and broader events and do bigger tent things in the crypto space, especially in the bear market where coordination is more important than ever. We're going to continue trying to work closely with other partners from around the space on these educational initiatives. There's no reason to do it alone. There's no reason to work in silos. This is all about trying to build the broadest possible value for the broadest set of users. So thank you to everybody who's with us on the ground attending the events. Thank you again to everybody who's helping organize the events. It's not always easy, but it is always worth it. With that, I'll wrap up today's Secret Spaces. We're going to try to be doing these again on a more regular cadence. Just the last couple of weeks, what with all of the travel and engaging people on the ground, it's been a little trickier to hold to that regular schedule. But I think these are great opportunities to engage with the broader ecosystem and to give these updates. So even if you have friends that couldn't attend Secret Spaces today, please send the episode link around to them. You can use the Twitter link because it's auto-recorded here on the platform. As long as Twitter exists, we will still be doing spaces on here. So whether that's another few years or a month, please continue to join us back here on Twitter for Secret Spaces. We're going to do them this time every week. daylight savings time is coming up here in the US. I think we're going to keep either the UTC time fixed or we're going to keep the daylight savings time fixed. We'll be figuring that out for you and letting you know the new timing, but we always do this around midday US time. So we will give you updates when we know the next exact time for this to be. Otherwise, join us next Tuesday. We'll be trying to bring this right back. If you've got guests you'd like to see on Secret Spaces, let us know. Always give us a follow here on Twitter. Tweet at us if there's people you want to see. Tweet at us if there's content you want us to put together or members of the ecosystem you want to see featured. Do let us know. We take community demand very seriously. That's what we're mostly responsive to and responsible for. Again, thanks everybody for showing up for Secret Spaces this week. For Patrick and Jay and myself, Tor, we're signing off. We look forward to seeing you either in person at an upcoming event or in the metaverse on Secret Spaces. If you'd love to keep chatting with us, come to chat.scrt.network. That's the Secret Network Discord. We would love to hear what you're building, thinking about, working on there, and pull you deeper into the secret ecosystem.
Thanks a lot.
Cheers.
guys.
Happy Tuesday.